Grace and peace, everybody. We are back. Mayor Katie Wilson in Seattle has caused a huge dust-up out there on the West Coast because of her policies, because of her ideas. But I want to bring up something that I don't think a lot of people know about Katie. So we're going to do a little bit of deep dive into who Katie is. I want to bring this video in because this is where most people, myself included, were introduced to Katie. She had just been elected as the mayor of Seattle. She had not even taken the oath of office yet. She hadn't even moved in yet. And she was protesting against Starbucks. Let's go.
Baristas are the heart and soul of this company, and they deserve better than empty promises and corporate union busting. That is why I am proud to stand with union baristas in their fight for a fair contract and for a union. That is why I am proud to join them on their picket line and proud to say loud and clear, I am not buying Starbucks and you should not either. And I would like to close with a message to Starbucks. This is your hometown and mine. Seattle's making some changes right now. And I urge you to do the right thing. Because in Seattle, when workers' rights are under attack, what do we do? When workers' rights are under attack, what do we do? When workers' rights are under attack, what do we do? Because this is your city. Thank you very much.
All right, that was my introduction to Katie. Now, most of you all know what happened soon after this protest. Soon after this protest, shall we say, Starbucks said, hold my latte, right? So let's bring this in, and we're going to talk about what happened over there after that. So bring this in.
Starbucks, a company synonymous with Seattle, may be looking to change its brew. The company says it'll open a new headquarters in Nashville and transition jobs to Tennessee. Good evening, I'm Molly Shen.
And I'm Preston Phillips. This move creates new questions for the future of the company that was built right here in Seattle. The new offices are nearly 2,400 miles away from the company's current home in Seattle's Soto neighborhood. Today, the company did make references to the business and tax climate in that state. Couple City reporter Chris Daniels has new reaction from Seattle's elected leaders and what Starbucks is saying about its long-term plans. He's live this evening at the company's headquarters in Soto. Chris?
Preston, make no mistake about it, Starbucks has been looking for office space outside of Seattle for months now, likely frustrated by a Seattle mayor that has been appearing at protests outside stores, the labor unrest within Starbucks and its stores, and the higher taxes that have been approved in Washington State and the city of Seattle. I am told that Starbucks has been actively looking for office space in Bellevue, but has now pivoted to the volunteer state and the lower tax threshold there. It is a company synonymous with this skyline.
Great coffee, a specialty coffee, and a brand that you can always trust.
Just ask Orlando Curtin, who hails from Philadelphia. When you think about Starbucks, does any city come to mind?
Seattle.
We Nashville in a minute, my dude.
Washington.
Yet Starbucks will move Seattle jobs east in a plan that has been brewing for months. And it is hard not to read into the words of Starbucks CEO Brian Niccol.
You guys have created a really strong business climate, a skilled workforce, and frankly, conditions that just are conducive to us being able to expand our footprint.
Niccol said it at the formal announcement to build out a 250,000 square foot headquarters in the Peabody Union Building on the Cumberland River, with Starbucks saying it will hire and transition jobs to Nashville, a slow drip over the course of the next 5 years.
No contract?
In a move that has been percolating after Seattle's Mayor Katie Wilson joined labor leaders in a protest outside a Starbucks store, the state legislature and city of Seattle approved new business and income taxes, plus the closure of 2 local landmark roasteries, including the tourist draw on Seattle's Capitol Hill.
Foot traffic has dropped 50% on the Hill just in that area alone, right?
Seattle City Council President Joy Hollingsworth acknowledges the numbers, like the recent report by Wallet Hub placing Washington with the 25th highest tax burden of all 50 states, and Tennessee with the 3rd lowest a factor for Starbucks to follow the trail blazed by Amazon to relocate corporate employees to the Music City years ago.
The reality is that businesses on all levels are a part of our future. They're a part of our plan moving forward. They're part of the Seattle fabric.
But that fabric may be a little worn with this shot across the bow and a notice that the siren is on the move. The Starbucks CEO, Nickel, did call Seattle the global headquarters today. But again, reading between the lines, it certainly appears that there will be multiple jobs going to Tennessee and fewer jobs than the thousands that were here at the Starbucks headquarters in Soto just a few years ago. Now, just a short time ago, I did get a statement from Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson's office about this news, saying in part, Starbucks is a core part of Seattle's identity. We're proud to be home to its first store, and we're focused on maintaining a strong partnership with leadership and with employees so Starbucks continues to succeed in the city where it all began. But this is a story that is not going away anytime soon. For now, live at the corporate headquarters for now in Seattle, I'm Chris Hayes.
All right, Chris, thank you. That brings us to our Como Pulse poll tonight. Scan this QR code that's on your screen to participate as we're asking, do you think Seattle's leadership creates a business-friendly climate? Here's a live look at the results. Right now, you can see most people, 93% say no and getting worse. Just 4% say yes, and only 3% say not entirely, but improving. Again, if you'd like to weigh in, scan the code on your screen. It'll take you directly to the story on comonews.com.
Okay, so the question you're asking yourself is, Jason, where are you going with this? What's the purpose of this discussion? There's some things about Katie Wilson I don't think people knew. Do you know who Katie Wilson was before she became mayor? Do you know what her economic situation was before she became mayor? And I found a young lady who discusses Katie's policies, her economic situation, her financial situation before she became mayor. And it sheds a light on the ideas that she's promoting now because her ideas weren't working then and they're still not working. So shout out to Victoria Foster in the Williams Report. Let's bring this in. All right, let's bring this in. This is a very interesting expose, if you will, on who Katie Wilson actually is. So here we go. Let's
Seattle just handed City Hall to a 43-year-old socialist whose parents still help pay her family's bills. She will now run one of the richest cities in America. 750,000 people and a budget measured in billions on a $250,000 salary. And what her own 76-year-old father just told reporters about the family money is the part her campaign never wanted anybody to hear. So just imagine this with me. It is a gray Seattle morning and a woman is standing at a bus stop on Capitol Hill. She's not performing for a camera crew. This is genuinely how she gets around. Her name is Katie Wilson. And for more than a decade, she has been the face of the Transit Riders Union, a scrappy activist outfit she helped build from nothing into a real force in Seattle politics. She fought for cheaper bus fares and won. She fought for a higher minimum wage and won. She built a reputation as the rare activist who does the unglamorous work, the spreadsheets, the petitions, the city council meetings that run past midnight. She did all of that. And she lived the part. A 1-bedroom apartment on Capitol Hill, a husband, a 2-year-old daughter, a household squeezed by the same rents she campaigned about. When she launched her long-shot run for mayor against the incumbent Bruce Harrell, the local press wrote the story she had spent years setting up. One headline said it perfectly. She can barely afford to live in Seattle. And that is exactly why she wants to run it. Voters believed it. In November 2025, she pulled off one of the biggest upsets in the city's modern history and became the mayor-elect of Seattle, a struggling renter. One of us, finally in charge. There was just one problem with the story. One arrangement sitting quietly underneath that 1-bedroom apartment. And when it surfaced, even her own father ended up confirming it. To understand why this landed the way it did, you need the numbers. because the numbers are what make the fairy tale wobble. Wilson's job as president of the Transit Riders Union paid her about $72,000 in 2022. And when she declared her candidacy, she reported household income somewhere under $100,000. Here is what that means in Seattle. MIT's living wage calculator puts the cost of supporting a 2-adult, 1-child household in that city at just over $97,000 a year. Her family sat right at the edge of that line in a city where the rent on their 1-bedroom apartment alone runs about $26,000 a year, $2,200 every month. On paper, that math is brutal. Childcare in Seattle costs as much as a second rent. A 2-year-old in full-time care can run well over $20,000 a year. Add it up, and the household that was the face of Seattle's affordability crisis should have been drowning, except it wasn't, because there was another line in the family budget, one that never appeared on a campaign poster: the child care bill, the biggest single cost crushing young Seattle families. The expense her own voters lie awake over was mostly not being paid by Katie Wilson. It was being paid by her parents. And the way that arrangement came out during the campaign tells you everything about how long it was meant to stay quiet. And to feel why this cuts so deep in that city, put yourself in the shoes of the people who actually powered her movement. You are a Seattle barista, or a junior nurse, or a transit operator. You have a 2-year-old, just like she does. Your daycare bill runs somewhere between $1,800 and $2,000 a month, every month. And there is no professor grandmother writing checks behind you. You do the math. She never had to finish. You skip the dentist. You put the daycare on a credit card in the bad months. And then you see a candidate at your bus stop telling you she can barely afford this city, and you believe her. You can barely afford it yourself. And for once, somebody running for office seems to be living your life instead of just studying it. That is the exact bond that won Katie Wilson the election, which is why the quiet line item in her household budget is not a gotcha about gifts. It's the difference between someone who shares your water level and someone who is wearing a life vest the whole time and let you believe otherwise. Her opponents found it, of course, and they swung hard. A 43-year-old candidate for mayor taking money from mom and dad. The attack wrote itself, and the local press had to ask. Wilson's answer was remarkable in its own way. She said she could not even say how much her parents had given because she does not keep track. Sit with that for a second. The activist, whose entire brand is auditing other people's budgets, who built a career line iteming transit fares and wage laws, does not track the family subsidy that keeps her own household above water. Her defenders rushed in, and to be fair to them, their argument deserves a hearing. Millions of American families get help from grandparents with childcare. That is real, and there is no shame in it. If this were a school teacher or a nurse, nobody would blink. But Katie Wilson did not run as a school teacher. She ran as the embodiment of the squeezed Seattle renter, the woman who can barely afford the city. And that image is what won her the election. The subsidy does not make her a criminal, of course. It makes the poster a lie of omission. She was never the renter treading water. She was a renter with a safety net that the actual renters of Seattle do not have. Wired to a family with the kind of money that makes a 1-bedroom on Capitol Hill a choice rather than a sentence. And just when the campaign thought it had weathered the story, her father picked up the phone and made it worse. Her allies also tried a second defense, and it is worth taking seriously before it falls apart. They argued the story was actually relatable, proof that even accomplished, educated professionals cannot make Seattle's math work. So what chance does anyone else have? Look closer, and the argument eats itself. If a 2-income activist household with grandparents on standby cannot survive the city without family money, then the policies she spent a decade championing did not fix the affordability crisis she campaigned inside of. Her own household is the evidence itself. And unlike the voters she asked to trust her, she always had the option that never appears in her speeches: the family with means, one phone call away. The relatable version of Katie Wilson pays the daycare bill herself or does not have the second child yet. The real version had a donor base before she ever had a campaign, and it shared her last name. David Wilson is 76 years old, a retired professor's husband with a retired professor for a wife. And when reporters reached him, he did what proud fathers do. He talked. He confirmed the arrangement, put a number on part of it, around $5,000 in help, and said out loud the thing that reframed the entire election. He hoped that with her new salary, his daughter would finally become financially independent. Finally, at 43,
that's crazy.
The word every parent of a struggling adult child knows, spoken about the incoming mayor of Seattle. And that new salary is the reveal this whole story was building toward. The number her campaign never put next to the bus stop photos: $250,000 a year, $250,000, more than 3 times what she earned running her activist group, one of the biggest mayoral salaries in the United States. Even Wilson herself, asked about the family money after her win, offered the same quiet confirmation. With the mayor's paycheck, she will no longer need it. Read that answer again, because it is the whole scandal in one sentence. She will no longer need it, meaning she needed it the entire time, through every speech about affordability, through every bus ride and every headline about barely scrapping by. The woman selling Seattle a story about surviving the city was being carried by family money. And the plan for independence was not a raise or a side job. It was the taxpayers of Seattle handing her a $250,000 salary. And that is where this stops being a story about one family and becomes a story about a pattern, because Seattle is not an outlier. It is a franchise. In New York, Zoran Mamdani rode the identity of the struggling renter into the mayor's office while his family holds a multi-million-dollar fortune and a staffed villa overlooking Lake Victoria. In Seattle, Katie Wilson rode the identity of the priced out activist into City Hall while her parents quietly covered the bills that price everyone else out. Different coasts, same playbook. The socialist candidate runs on scarcity they have never fully lived, wins on authenticity that is partly a costume, and then takes over a government whose budget dwarfs anything they have ever managed. Wilson will now oversee billions in public spending. Her own household, by her father's telling, could not stand on its own 2 feet until the public started paying her. The people who should be angriest are not conservatives. They are the actual struggling renters of Seattle, the baristas and the transit riders and the young parents paying full freight for childcare with no professor grandparents on call, who looked at Katie Wilson and thought, finally, someone who knows what this feels like. She knows what it looks like. Knowing what it feels like was always subsidized. There is one more number that belongs in the story because it is the one Seattle will live with. The city Wilson now runs faces the same affordability spiral she campaigned on, and her first budget will decide who pays for it. Every choice she makes about taxes, about childcare subsidies, about renter protections will now be read through the fact her own father put on the record. When she tells a council chamber that families are drowning, she will be right. And everyone in the room will know she was never quite one of them. Credibility is the currency of a movement politician. Hers now comes with an asterisk the size of a $250,000 salary. So let's bring it full circle. A woman stands at a bus stop on Capitol Hill and tells a city she can barely afford to live there. And the city, moved by the story, gives her the keys. Only later does it learn the story had a cosigner. The child care was covered by her parents. The shortfall closed by family money she says she never counted. And by her own words, she needed that help right up until the moment a $250,000 public salary made it unnecessary. Here is the bottom line. Seattle did not elect a struggling renter. It elected the idea of one, performed by a candidate whose safety net was real and whose scarcity was optional. Voters are allowed to be lied to by omission only so many times. Then they start checking the fine print on every underdog story a politician sells them. In Seattle, the fine print was simple, and her father read it out loud for everyone. The woman hired to fix a city that cannot afford itself could not afford herself until you started paying her.
Shout out to that. And I just wanted to bring this up because a lot of people didn't know that Katie Wilson wasn't able to live. She presented an idea that she was struggling to live under the ideas that she wanted to push, but she actually wasn't. She was propped up by her mom and dad, just like Mom Donnie's propped up by his parents and such like that. These people don't live the ideas that they want to push. So you're going to have to ask yourself, why are we pushing and supporting and electing socialists who don't actually live what they're actually pushing? Ideas. Let me know what you think. Comment down below. I really want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear your opinions about it as well. Comment down below. I'm looking forward to seeing what you got to say. So until next time, everybody, grace and peace. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the JWhit Podcast. If you enjoyed today's show, please do me a favor and hit me up with that 3-piece special. Like the video, subscribe, and of course, share it with somebody who would also enjoy this type of content. And make sure you leave a comment because I do pin the best comments to the top. So thank you so much for tuning in today. And until next time, everybody, grace and peace.